Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 6 of the Two Brothers podcast, and I have my co-host here today.
Oh yeah, good to be back here. This is a speedrun episode, and
It's a shorter one
because you got some movie to catch.
I do.
And so we have a few topics today, nothing too crazy, but it's cool that we're staying consistent and we're getting this out.
We're doing it this time. We're keeping consistent. The movie I'm going to go see is Super Mario. And you notice Jack Black has made a little bit of a resurgence, it feels like, lately. Like he's kind of, I feel like
for
he's
better or
popping
for
up.
worse. You mean that? I
Wait,
feel
what
like,
do you mean for worse?
Oh, because in Mandalorian, I feel like he is always. I always like seeing him in a show.
Yeah.
But him in Mandalorian was a massive distraction, in my opinion.
Jack Black will suck up the vibe of the room.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was just, I don't see the character. I see Jack Black is now in Star Wars. Like that's how I see him. And then,
that's how I see it too, to be fair. Yeah.
With him and Mario, it's like, oh, that's awesome. And then him and this, it's like, okay, I'm happy to see. It's kind of bittersweet. It's like I'm happy to see him.
You're right, but counterpoint. I saw Bill Burr as Bill Burr. I even forget his name. Like I was just like, oh shit, it's Bill Burr. But like he nailed the character, and I think that episode was like flawless, pretty much.
Well, see, with Bill Burr, I feel like he's done more dramatic roles, so it's like I'm willing to ignore the comedian aspect of it because of him in Breaking Bad and stuff like that. I feel like he set up his career to where he's like that kind of an actor, whereas Jack Black has set up his career to where he's, oh, that's Jack Black.
Is it a case where if Jack Black was playing a more serious character, because he is, he seems like a good actor, he just hasn't done those roles as much, that maybe it would have been less distracting, but the fact that he was playing a role that is very much like himself is more distracting?
I think it was also the person, it was Lizzo and Jack Black. I think that magnified it, where it's like, here's this massive distraction in this episode. I think that also did it. But if he did more dramatic roles, maybe. I just think he had such a filmography of being Jack Black and playing that character that it's really difficult, even if he did more. Kind of like how Jim Carrey did more dramatic roles, and then you can kind of take him seriously and stuff. But it's hard to say. I think it's very subjective. It's just how I felt looking at it, even though I always like seeing him and stuff.
I get that take for sure. But he's going to be in Super Mario. Haven't seen that yet. So I'm excited to go see it here in like an hour. And it's supposed to be pretty good. I mean, the reviews are pretty good of it. So there's actually a lot of movies I want to see. D&D.
D&D was fantastic. I saw that. Yeah. Guardians 3 just came out. I saw that on release. And finally, a W for Marvel. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything.
Don't. So I'm going to go see that one, no doubt.
And very good. Definitely one of the more darker versions of a Marvel movie that I've seen.
Okay, that intrigues me a little bit. Okay, well, but it's too new.
Okay.
It's too new.
So
I don't think we should talk about that. People are going to get mad. They're going to click off that one.
Okay, so
but D&D looks like a good one.
That one was surprisingly fun, and I think Chris Pine needs to get more recognition. Like he just brings it in a lot of movies. Like whenever I see a movie that has him in it, I get excited at this point because I haven't seen him drop the ball or be in a bad movie in quite a while.
So speaking of D&D, you've played a D&D campaign that wrapped up recently, right?
Next week is going to be the final.
The final, okay. Yeah. And then I'm playing a D&D campaign every other Sunday. My brother hosts it, and we have, I think it's 6 people total, if I remember correctly. So we just had ours yesterday on Sunday as well. And so I want to share. So I have this character built out, and it's kind of like a sci-fi universe. It's not like old school D&D, and it's a slightly different rules. But so the character that I have built out is like a minotaur that just is all social skills, basically. So it's I put all my experience in the social skills. I have like no combat. I'm useless in a fight, okay? But there's this talent tree that I go down, you pick all these different ones, and all the way at the bottom, I put all my experience the entire time we've played till I unlock this one thing, which what it does, it's called Let's Talk It Out, where when you get into an encounter, you can roll an extremely difficult check. It's against it's a 4 difficulty check, which is like the highest, against, so you have a low chance of winning it, against the opportunity to make the combat encounter instead of social encounter. So you're like, instead of fighting. So what happens is we've been preparing this whole time and there's the big boss fight. And my brother forgot, as the DM, he forgot I had this skill. So when we go to start like the big boss fight at the end, I won the roll. I won the roll by 1. And so he's like, you motherfucker. Like, he's like, I had this whole fight. Fight's over. Let's talk it out. And
that's
then,
so funny.
Because my character was loaded in social stats, it just talks him into like, let us leave.
You just like have advantage on every, that's so funny. It's kind of like gift of gab. I've heard that that's something that people just like ban from campaigns because it's too busted. And so you found the way to do it fairly. You hit the one time no enemies.
No, it was a very fun experience to watch my brother be like, oh fuck, like I didn't see that coming, you know.
That's funny. Yeah, because we just had one fight, and then the boss was like terrifying that he had in this area. Like he almost like one shot one dude in our party, and
Lord.
like and he had to like fly up and only had 3 health and stuff like that. But I could imagine how funny it would be because it's like he had it in the encounter that he would flee, and then he would be like he had a lot of moves to like get because he wanted him in the next fight too.
Oh, I see.
And then if you were able to just cheese him there, it would have just like ruined everything.
Yeah. So we had to go when we started encounter. He had to go through the next week's plan because we blew through like the whole session in like 2 minutes because it's like we're talking it out now.
Yeah. The first campaign, like how tedious the fighting is. It's like everyone's on it too, and like even if you're on it ready to go, you don't like waste time on your turns. It's still very meticulous on like okay, so I roll, and I do like it a lot. It's one of those things that if I wasn't in this particular scenario, I don't think I would ever had this experience. Yeah. But I'm glad that I'm having it, and I think it's a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you end up playing in like a Diablo D&D
campaign. Oh yeah, because I don't think I've talked about it on here, but it's the guy wanted to do it Diablo themed, so it's in the world. I want to say right before D1, so it's like King Leoric is still alive, and you have those kind of people here, and then basically it's like him about to become the Mad King, and like.
Okay. So that's it. That's a cool time period.
Yeah. And so I think it's like a legitimately really cool. And it just so happens to be like we're super into Diablo. And so it's like, okay, don't know anything about this, but I at least know some of the lore here when it comes to Diablo. And I can apply that to the character and stuff like that.
Speaking of Diablo, we have 4 days until the Server Slam comes out. And I think I can mention this because it's in like a day and a half. And I don't remember this being NDA or anything. But on the 10th also, they're doing the Diablo dev live stream. And then after that, they're going to raid into my YouTube channel. Yeah, so it's going to be kind of a fun, I'm going to do a live stream day on that too and watch the dev live stream and then talk about D4. And then we have like a day or two after that, we go straight into the Server Slam, which is only level 20. So it's like, it's pretty.
Is this an opportunity to get the mount or whatever? Not the mount, but like the
wolf backpack. Yes, you can get that again if you haven't had the opportunity to, as well as you can get the mount cosmetic, which is basically just a horn that goes on your mount. Also, the release date for the game is actually June 1st at 4 p.m. Pacific time.
4 p.m. Okay, so is that 3 p.m. our time?
Yeah.
On June.
So it's 4 p.m. like LA time, basically.
Okay.
Or like 7 p.m. Eastern, to give you an idea for the other people. But the reason they're saying it's June 2nd and June 6th instead of June 1st and June 5th is when globally everywhere, like in Europe, it will be the 2nd. But for North America and for South America, it's going to be the 1st. So so if you guys are wondering, getting days off and stuff, like get the 1st off, not the 2nd.
Yeah, that's, I'm not used to it being like catered to Americans. Usually it's like, okay, here's the date, but then it just so happens that they get it a little early. So then they would, get
I feel like America doesn't get the pre-releases as much. Is that wrong to say? I feel like it's the other parts of the world.
Yeah, I think it's usually that.
Because we have to like VPN and stuff in on some of these games to try them out at the right time.
Yeah. So that's good to know. I think a lot of people are probably, myself included, didn't get those days off. And so I want to at least have like a good week there where we can just go ham. And like there's something about being like in the first wave of people when you're playing a game. Like I love that energy.
That's the best time. Yeah. You log in, you see it's basically the peak. And what's a little frustrating is I had to buy like the Ultimate Edition or the pre-order edition or whatever on both. Like I had to buy it on PC. It was like, $100 on the PC, $100 on the console. Because I want during the 5 days, I also want to be playing it on the console. I had to shell out.
Oof.
On both. So on the ballot, I bought the Ultimate twice. But the collector's boxes are getting shipped out pretty soon from what I understand. I think some people got some of them early. So I'm hoping that I'm on the list to get mine early.
Speaking of collector's editions, I got the what is it? The Switch for Zelda.
You did, yeah. You go grab it. I'll keep it going. So we have the new Breath of the Wild game, which I forget the name of it, is coming out. When is the date? The 12th of this month? Okay, so the 12th, so in 4 days, the same time Server Slam comes out, the new Zelda is coming out as well, and he got the special. It doesn't come with the game or anything, right?
It does not, no, because it came out early.
Let me take a look at it. So this is like so this is the case here that holds it, and then you have the controllers and stuff. And does the body of it itself not have anything
There's
special?
nothing special on that one. It's just special here and special there. It's just a normal OLED version of the Switch. And the reason why I got it is because I have like a day one Switch, and I figured if I was going to get it, this would be a time to do it. And then plus it's kind of badass that it's the special edition for probably the best series on Switch so far, at least for me. Like Breath of the Wild was amazing.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild was is the best game on Switch, no doubt. Unless we're talking like Smash Bros.
Oh yeah,
okay. There's an argument to be made, but no, I think a single player, easily the best single player game.
Yeah, and so pretty exciting, and I've never really gotten one of these kind of. I've just never been in a position where it's worth it for me to buy like a console that's specific to a game, regardless of how much I like it. So it's kind of a rarity.
You make a video on it; it's a tax write-off.
I know. There we go. Okay, it is now 30% cheaper. Ooh, look at that!
Look at that, everybody.
So. But what about the Diablo Collector's Edition one?
Okay. Well, what's your question? You want to know what's in the box?
My question is what do you get with it? Is it worth buying?
It's separate than the game, which I actually like. But there's a lot of people complaining because if you want to buy just the box or buy it separately or find one later on, you know what I mean, or get sold on eBay or something, you can do that without having to rebuy the game as well. But there's an argument to be made that it's quite expensive for not having the game. It's basically $100, but no game. So I feel like collector's edition games are $150, $200, $250. Like I've seen them go up there. Call of Duty would be an example of one with had the huge goggles and everything came with the game. So there's some complaint about that. So you don't get the game.
Don't get the game
with the collector's edition. However, you get it's some LED candles that look kind of cool. There's a map. There's some lore type of booklets in there. There's some canvas art. There's a pin. It's like the normal, what you would expect swag bag type of stuff. I mean, there's not really anything in particular in there other than the map and the canvas art that I'm super excited about. But it's mostly stuff for your wall, stuff to put on your shelf. It's the same type of collector stuff that you're gonna get. Nothing that's really above and beyond. So I don't know if it's worth it or not. I'm going to get it just to put in the backdrop of the candles next to the TV.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're going to be covering a ton of Diablo for you gotta
go with the collector's edition.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So let's talk about Honkai Star Rail because that game came out. I think we're on week 2 of
Week
Honkai.
2. I've been playing it, but not hardcore. So I'm 41 adventure rank, I think, or something like that.
I've fallen off the past couple days, so I'm 38 and. I feel like that's a fair amount for a free-to-play player. I think probably 42
we're
to
both
43.
Free-to-play. We should clarify that from the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's a fair level to be at because you get gated pretty hard on the leveling system, just like Genshin. And I was curious on what is your thoughts on the longevity of this game? Because
I think it could be arguably maybe better than Genshin because I think gacha games are easier to make content that's absorbable. It's turn-based. They don't have to have this huge open world they have to keep developing. And I guess they do because it is sort of open world. Where you walk around and do the stories and stuff. But it feels more linear to me. It feels more single player to me. It feels easier to develop. I could be wrong. I would think the longevity would probably be pretty good. Genshin's was pretty good. I'm not necessarily, to be honest, I'm not even necessarily that excited by the game. I think it's fun. I like it. It didn't grab me the way Genshin did. I really liked Genshin a lot. But I liked the combat and actively being able to play. For me, it's kind of just another gacha, but it is from the Genshin perspective, so I can see why people are so interested in it. So, for me, the longevity might not be so great, but I think for the general public, it's going to be quite long.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess it's up to you on how much you like these kind of turn-based games. We have been playing an absolute ton of them.
A lot.
So it's another one of these. For example, if you have a game, we played a lot of Raid, and you just, even if it's great and it's just another one of those, I guess a better example would be Oblivion to Skyrim. So when I played Skyrim, I was like, wow, this is a great game. And I barely played it because I just finished it, did all the kind of the stuff, but not too much because it was so similar to Oblivion that I feel like I already had that experience. And I went super into Oblivion comparatively, and I played Skyrim. I was like, oh, this is a great game. But then I just lost interest because it was it was so similar. I felt like I was playing the game twice again.
There's one other thing too that is a little. It's not wrong or off-putting. I don't know how to describe it. But basically, the one other issue I have with the game is there's almost too few characters. Like, there's not that big of a pool of characters, which is kind of good. It was one of the positive points I actually made last podcast when we were talking about it, because it's like, there's not that many. So when you poll, most of them are good, which is fine. But then what happens is once you get the characters, if you're somebody that plays gacha games because you like dopamine and all that, all you have left is to get constellations. Like, I already have 2, almost 3 characters, fully maxed out constellations free to play.
Yeah,
like
which is surprising.
Not including the free guy.
And I feel like what's going to end up happening is like, so from a dopamine perspective, being free to play, I think you get one big shot of it in the beginning, and then you're basically done.
You're basically done,
Yeah, because I don't see myself getting enough pulls. Like, it seems like they have a character every 20 days, and the next character, I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not going to be able to get this character. Then maybe we'll have to skip on the next one too, if I wanted to guarantee pull that character.
That's a good point, but for me, it's also more of like, it's somewhat not very exciting because I know all of the characters I'm going to pull, and most of the time I've already got a couple copies of them if they're like a purple or something. And for the 5 stars, it's almost fairly unrealistic. Like, free to play, you're not really going to get like that many pulls later on. And so even if I wanted to I almost don't want to because it's not exciting. It's like I can pull when a banner comes out. What you're doing is if you're you're collecting the heroes and maxing them out, and then a new hero comes out and you just max them out. Like, there's not like Raid where there's this huge pool of characters where you play for 2 years, then suddenly you get C-feet. Like, you don't have these moments of like, I got the rare one that's so good. And maybe that's better for free to play because the pool is not as diluted with bad stuff. But it feels like to me, if you don't have the amount of characters to pull, gacha games seem less exciting, or at least Star Rail seems less exciting than like Genshin, because it's once you have Genshin, you're playing Genshin, you get Diablo, you get a few characters, but then you're still actively playing the game. It's not a turn-based thing, etc. But gachas are very much dopamine driven, which I feel like dopamine driven in this game is more so the gear than it is the heroes. Yeah,
it could be that. I think that is a good point, especially because this is the second game we played where they had an issue with the amount of heroes.
Yeah.
And we played like Awaken Chaos Era. That's another gacha game that we were like wanting to spend money, but didn't want to because there wasn't enough characters.
But that game did get a few $1,000s out of me because they have light dark characters too. Yeah, so it's, they have this extreme level of dopamine. And my problem with Genshin in Star Rail is you're pulling on the banner, you're going to get them in 50 pulls. And you're really only pulling for that guy. If I pull on the standard banner, you're basically an idiot. And then if you pull on the new one, that's the one you're having the hero that everyone else is getting. So instead of it's like, I got this hero, you got those heroes. It is cool that we had separate teams in the beginning, but going forward, that's never a thing anymore. Because it's like, oh, did you get the new hero? We both got the new hero. I got mine 3 constellation. You got yours 2. Like, it's not like, oh, I got this one, you got that one. Like, there's
not like unique experiences based on your pulls. I think only in the beginning, and then I think going on in the future, I think what's going to happen is later on, as more characters get released, you're going to start to see that disparity open up again. Because in the beginning, it was, I think another issue is that they made that initial character so good that it was a no-brainer to pull for that character.
Yeah, everyone has Seal. Basically, it's like you get Seal or you start over.
Yeah, and so if the character was kind of questionable, then I might have saved, you might have pulled for him. But when you just make it the best character, then everyone's going to pull for that character. Everyone's kind of similar because also you get the rate up on the epics too. So then I think that was kind of the issue there. Also, a potential issue is just how long the banners are. Like, usually these banners are only like a week or something.
Yeah.
Whereas this one's 20 days, 21 days or whatever. So I think that also kind of leans into everyone having the same characters. The only difference really is that first guaranteed 50 and then how lucky you are there. Because I ended up getting Welt. You ended up getting
my first start?
Bronya.
The first one was Bailu, the healer.
And so I think that's a pretty massive difference.
And at the time we actually were saying the same thing.
And I think it's kind of cool that we have that experience there because I think it's cool to have, you're playing the same game, but then we get to see it in such a massive difference because of the 5-star we get.
I also think the opinion I'm stating with like a big pool and all that isn't necessarily like the majority. I think that's kind of like the reason I'm thinking my longevity on it might not be as long because I do like dopamine, and if I was going to play the game a long time, maybe I wouldn't be free to play, but there's no reason it feels like to spend money in this game unless to farm gear. Like that's what it feels like to me. You buy resin, farm gear, ascensions, get your rank up. So it feels to me like what I'm fighting is my overall adventure rank level, which was like my least favorite part of Genshin.
I completely agree with that because I'm sitting here stuck being inefficient because I know that everything gets better like 10 levels away. So it's like, okay, well, now I'm sitting here min-maxing like what I'm doing in the meantime, waiting for this big moment.
It feels bad either way.
Yeah.
Like it feels bad because you're like, oh, next level, I get this huge upgrade post. So I'm wasting my resin. I wasted my fuel or whatever. But at the same time, it's like I still have to get there, so I need the experience. And then instead, what you can do is, as free to play anyway, you can literally just math out. Okay, in 4 days.
Yeah,
I'll be there. So when knowing the outcome before it happens is very disappointing, and typically in these games, because the whole point is to go there and like get excited and dopamine. I mean, that's why they have all these psychology stuff. Maybe that's not what they're going for. They could be trying to develop a deeper game that's not about dopamine. I'm okay with that. It's just not
I think the core in-game gameplay is actually pretty good for making sure it doesn't get stale. I think that was one of the issues that Raid had, at least initially, where you're sitting there, you have the characters, and it seemed like the only rewards you got were to pull more characters, but what's the point in doing that? Because you're already doing all the content. Whereas in this game, the content has a long way to go to be able to beat it, and then they have the roguelike elements, which I think are a lot of fun, where you can have like a god roll sometimes, changes the experiences quite a bit, and I think that's one of the best ways to make a single-player game repeatable. And then just having something that is not possible and a carrot on the stick for the future that's not character-based, but just more of like accomplishment-based, I think is kind of cool. And
I also think they did a good job with stuff like being able to salvage relics. Like you can salvage your legendary relics. Every 10, you can focus down and craft the one you want. I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, it doesn't guarantee the stats on it, but it's like I'm having trouble getting legendary quantum damage boots right now. It's not I'm getting quantum damage for everything else, but the boots I can't get. So I will craft that set boots instead. So I do think that there's some nice quality of life, and from the beginning it's a fairly decent quality game, and that's why I say in the beginning it's like, yeah, I do think it has longevity. It's just for me maybe not so much, because the whole character aspect, it's like, okay, I'll get every character and then what,
Yeah, because I think it's discouraging to play these games when everyone's the same. It's like not fun. It's like, oh, I want to feel like I got lucky, and it's like only a few people have this character. And so I
don't like gear grind games. Like I didn't like it with Raid. I didn't like it with Awaken, and I don't like it with this one. Like I don't want to grind gear and min-max gear. That's the part I don't like. I like grinding to be able to get chances to heroes, but then just like, oh, what is this gear? The attack, crit, damage. I mean, I have good gear. I'm even rolling good gear so far in my series. Pretty good stats, but for free to play, I think anyway right now.
Well, it's still not about the gear grind is just a side portion, in my opinion. Like the thing I like is having interesting mechanics and interesting fights that make it to where I'm wanting to try to use the characters and figure out these puzzles. Yeah. And the gear grind is just a part of that. And I do like that aspect where you have the gear grind is annoying, but I like how much option and choice you get from this system of gear.
You do. It's a good system, admittedly, yeah.
So there's that. I think the discouraging thing is if I don't like, for example, like let's say the in-game stuff is just boring, or I don't even want to bother with it. Then the game becomes, I sign in, do my energy, sign out. And then after a while, then I'm like, why am I even doing this? What am I waiting for? And then I just stop signing in and waste the energy. And then I just stop signing in, period, because there's nothing to look forward to. But in this game, I'm like actively wanting to play the, what is it? I forget the specific name of it, but the roguelike aspect.
The simulated world?
Yeah, simulated world is a lot of fun. Yeah. And then later on, when I get enough teams, I want to go in on the other side, because that's where it gets really hard. After you beat 15 of them, they open up more levels that are super hard that take 2 teams.
Well, and I like that the simulated worlds, they do have like the equilibrium level goes up too. It's not just like you hit 6 and you're done. So there's, it keeps going. And I do like that. I feel like it is kind of still the whole log in, do your dailies thing, though, because like that's weekly based. So once you've hit your weekly, you're done. Once you've done your index, you're done. Once you have the choreo, you're done.
Well, so when it comes to that, like I feel like that's why I like the roguelike part, because you can punch up and then there's so much opportunity there. Maybe we'll get to the point where we know exactly what we can get. We know exactly how strong we're going to get. But I feel like if I roll right in that system, then I could like maybe punch up way higher than I should. And at least gives me that opportunity, and I can try different stuff out with there. So that's why it's like, instead of me just being done energy-wise, I have this unlimited energy gameplay that I can just keep going back to. And then
it's a sandbox mode, is what I mean. It is more sandbox, but like at a certain point, like you're just out of rewards. Like you just don't get any more rewards.
Eventually I'll run out of the currency that I keep going on my tree. But like every attempt, it's like that's going to take me a month, of like constantly grinding that. Doubt. But eventually I'll run out of that. But at least you get that. And I think they did a good job there, where it's like you have your weekly limit on rewards.
Yeah.
And then you have every single attempt you get some kind of currency there too, which I think is nice because then you're a little stronger going back in.
Passive skill trees is nice, no doubt. I won't argue that. But like the only part I'm saying is like, okay, it's the immersion rewards are resin gated, and there's a weekly cap that's basically 2 runs, and then you're like done.
Oh yeah, on actually gaining rewards. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
right. So like at that point, it's kind of like, okay, well, so for me, like where I'm at is like I log in, I do the weeklies, and then if I want to do any side quests, then I'll do those. I'll do whatever quest I feel like doing, and once you're out of those, you're out of those. And then, you use your resin, which sometimes is in the simulated world too, like depending upon. So sometimes I just do the simulated world and I'm literally like just done.
Yeah.
Like just done. So I feel like I'm kind of hitting that point. And I know we're still waiting on Trailblazer rank. There's more game and I'm whining early and all that. But I'm saying I'm kind of already hitting the point where I feel like most gacha games get, where it's like I log in and do the same 3 things every day. Like I feel like I'm already there. And to be honest, I didn't expect it that early. But I think that's mostly because they do the Trailblazer level thing, which is mostly where I get annoyed. Like, I don't feel like I can, like in Raid, the dungeons are just open. It's just, can you beat them? Just go beat it, know?
Well, I feel like it's the same way here. It's just because of that Trailblazer rank, you're capped on what you can gain.
Yeah.
And so, but in this one, it's like, okay, well, here they're open. Well, they did gate it based on the Trailblazer, like as you're going through the campaign, but that's kind of normal in these games.
Yeah, and as I think about it, it's not that big of a deal because, like, I mean, I guess Raid has that too. Like level 40, you unlock the Doom Tower, so not all the content is instance, and it does take longer than where we're at so far to get to the 40. So, you make a fair counterpoint. Yeah.
So I think that there is, but if you don't like that mechanic of like just getting to play the game over and over again, then it's just going to get so quick. Because I think Genshin had a lot of stuff going for it in a different way where there's so much world and so much to explore.
There's a lot of time wasting I can do. Is what I felt like. And like, I like games that I can go on and waste time and not necessarily be efficient. Like in Immortal, there's a lot of walking around and fishing and stuff I can do. Has its own dailies that say the same thing. And there's a lot of like overworld farming I can do to constantly progress, even though it's way more pay to win than, than this, right? It's like, there's still a lot of stuff I can do and just progress it. But in Star Rail, I'm starting to get to the point where I feel like I log in and then it's, there's just like, here's these couple things to do and, go do them. I ran into the same problem with Genshin, though, to be fair. And Genshin had a worse problem, which is like you're locked so hard out of Trailblazer level or Adventure Rank level, you spend the whole game running around trying to find every chest. Which was terrible. But it had puzzles and stuff, too.
Well, it had stuff around the map. I think that's like a one-time thing, but they had way more. It was like in this game, it's like 20% puzzles and looking around, whereas in this game or in that game, it was like 80% of that. But I felt like in-game stuff, I would log in, farm relics or whatever they called it in that game, and then call it a day. Like so fast in Genshin.
That's true.
In this game, the roguelike part, I can sit there and grind it a ton. There's so much game there.
There's no doubt the simulated world. Yeah, I'm going to agree. The simulated world was a very nice addition to the game itself. I think really all it is like I'm just growing out gachas a little bit because the elements I'm explaining aren't something that's unique to Star Rail. It's just the gacha game elements of having to go in and basically I get 3 pieces of gear today. Did I get the 3 pieces of gear today? Like I'm starting to get a little bit annoyed at that style gameplay.
I get annoyed with the stuff that levels it. And waiting on that. And so it's like, okay, you get the stuff, but then it's like, okay, I'm sitting here min-maxing, like, okay, I want to take this to 3, I want to take that, and I want to try the characters out, but then I'm always trying them at a weakened state, and then waiting for that, it's a big pain in the ass. And they do that intentionally because they want me to spend, but that's just an annoying aspect of this game. But what I wanted to talk about is how common the content creators now for this game are all free-to-play. And I think that's a really cool thing that I think people are starting to understand how gachas work and what they're trying to do. And so now it's like, you know what, let's just all go free to play. And I think that's a cool movement.
I think that is
going forward here in this game.
The game feels good free to play. To be honest, the game feels good free to play. Like it's definitely fair enough, at least as to the amount of posts you get in the beginning were pretty good. And there were some starter events and starter promos and stuff that are now over, I believe, that were pretty good in the beginning as well. They gave you a bunch of posts, etc. So I agree with that actually. Plus I think you probably look back and it's like you spent, when you're getting the most views, you spend like 10, 15 grand on the game or something, and it's a percentage of your profits, a large percentage for me, if I spend a couple grand on the game, like I'm breaking even, like, I'm not going to, or in the negative because I'm just not covering the game that much. So it's free to play is the way to go on these, in my opinion. And it's also, if it's more satisfying because when you get something, you're like, oh, wow, I was able to, there's a baseline that everyone has. So like if you're free to play, your competition between other people are fair, but it's like when it's hard to be like, oh wow, I got a better character or whatever because it's okay. Well, I spent twice as much or whatever.
I felt like when I whaled it, it was like I was trying to look at it from the lens as what would a free to play get, and I'm ahead, so I'm like learning a little faster on the systems, and then trying to downscale it to them on what they could achieve, but it's just exhausting. I don't want to bother with that. Also, it costs money, and then I don't want I just didn't like the aspect of paying in these games, and it's like, okay, they know how much I'm spending, how is this profitable kind of thing, and it just creates potentially FOMO or whatever, or another pressure where it's like, well, they're doing it, and I don't want to encourage that at all. I would like everyone to be free to play. Like, ideally, the perfect scenario would be if I was spending, I'd be the only spender. People watch me, they're all free to play. Don't spend any money on the game, then I just kind of give advice on what the smart thing to invest your resources is. But that's just not the case, especially when you see other content creators that make way more views than I ever do, and they're spending like a couple thousand, and then it's like, oh, it's just normal. And then I don't want to create that at all. And so it's like, I like that. I wanted to test this idea because I've just been seeing so many content creators on YouTube doing it. I went on Twitch on Honkai, and I just scrolled down, and it was like free to play, and I think that's really cool.
A lot of people are free to play, and I think it's a mixture of Star Rail has done a good job in making the free to play viable, and it's a purpose thing by the creators to be more entertaining sometimes, I think, too. Because I think a lot of these guys, too, that were playing Genshin, like blew up with Genshin, which they were creators, but they became like big-time creators after Genshin, so now people watch them as entertainment source for them, so you can also sort of make the move to like pure entertainment value. Like this is me doing a let's play of Star Rail, and I can still do guides, etc. But your audience is still there, and most of those guys are like Twitch is now their largest primary form, and YouTube, even though they're big on YouTube, like Twitch is still. I mean, Tecton had more viewers than Moist Critical when I was watching them. So they're legitimately large on Twitch now.
Yeah. So I think it's good that they're going that direction, in my opinion, for. Like, I guess creator-wise, the game, I think they're trying to make as much profit as possible. And I think this game does a good job of actually getting you invested in the characters. Because I think in these games, when you make a brand new IP, if you don't care about the characters, no one's going to want to pull for them. Like, you need to have that kind of extra there.
Yeah, I think if you're into this style, yes, they do a good job. For me, almost any of the games are right. I like Diablo because he's a redhead with a trench coat and he's edgy, and I was cool, he's got a big sword. But like, I don't really have any characters even from Genshin that I felt like I connected a lot with. I spent $3,100 to max him out, and I maxed out his weapon too. And I don't necessarily have any.
I skipped all the story
connection to him.
But Paimon was so annoying that I actively couldn't stand the story. Like, it was Paimon ruined the story for me. And this game, it's like the story is totally I like the story in this one, but I'm skipping it because it's incredibly long. I just don't have time. I want to make content. I want to play the damn game. And I just want to skip it. And my plan was to skip the story and then find a video that had the story and just listen to it at 2x speed as I'm grinding, and then catch up on the story on the back end. And whereas in that one, I couldn't care less about the story. And so it's like I never had that, I don't even know the kind of personalities of the characters in that one. Whereas in this game, I feel like the main character's better, and then the characters around them, like, you kind of get an idea of their personality.
I think the voice acting's good. I think the story's probably good. I wouldn't know. I skipped through most of it. And I think that the whole text message thing is pretty cool. I like that. The character design is fairly decent. It's still like pretty anime, pretty, big titty, G-string. Yeah, it's still a lot of that, which I'm not
questionable cameraman.
Questionable cameraman. I'm not exactly a fan of like obvious men baiting in these kind of games. But so be it. I'm the minority, so I understand that.
Yeah, because like this game is like the classy one, and then seeing how far it's going.
This is way classy. I mean, make no mistake. This is acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, it has some minor troubles, but it's
because normally I get really uncomfortable with any of these type of games. Like we talked about this last week.
I've declined sponsorships because of this shit. There was this company called I think it was Idol Angels or something, and they wanted to pay me like $800 for everything, and I'm like, I'm not. It doesn't matter. You could give me 3 times the amount. Like, I'm not posting this game for my mom to see. Like, it's literally the cover is like a girl, it's like what?
It's way too much. There's that. Then there's Nike, and then it blows my mind how popular that is. It's just cringe in my opinion.
I find it cringe as well.
Yeah,
personally, but it's cringe for me. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really one to judge other people's decisions, but it's like if you like it, so be it. But for me, it's brutal. It's brutal. To actually.
And there's a lot of moments in this one where it's like, okay,
A couple, but they're all like, at least it's clothed boobies. You know what I mean? It's okay.
Well, I think it's so funny. Like literally the first camera shot. The first camera shot is right on Kafka's
first
tits.
camera. You can't even see her head.
Yeah.
It's
right on her tits.
Only. It's just.
And this is the classy one. This is the one we're going like, okay, this is the good one. And then just Google the other ones we mentioned, and they're far worse. But it's still pretty ridiculous that this is the case, that we're going like, okay, this is the acceptable one. Maybe we're getting too desensitized by this, but it's still a problem.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not even like I'm a prude or something. Like I'm pretty, pro most of the freedoms and sexos and all that stuff. Like I get it. I'm not trying to do anything weird. It's just it gets to a point where I feel like the average person has a heart. Like I'm not talking this game. I'm talking Idle Angels is the one I'm thinking about in my head here when I'm saying this, and then of course the Nike one. It gets to a point where it's like I feel like. Is the average person no longer thinking the same thing? Like, is the average person legitimately?
Yeah, like I don't know.
Cool with it.
They're so big nowadays that maybe that's the case. I don't know. I don't want to speak for anyone, but for me personally, I think it's a problem, and it's weird that this is now the acceptable baseline.
Well, it's not even just games for me. It's like on Twitter. Like I follow a lot of people on Twitter, and the second that someone starts posting their nudes on Twitter, I'm going to unfollow you. And it has nothing to do with me. It doesn't matter. You can be my friend. I'll unfollow you. It has nothing to do with me not approving of it. It's just like, I don't want to pull my phone out in public. Yeah. And people will look at your phone. When you pull your phone out, people will look at your phone in your hand. And if I'm scrolling through Twitter just to read stuff while I'm in the, like I did this in the dentist. This is actually why I was in the dentist waiting on my teeth clean. I'm scrolling through and someone I knew just posted their nudes.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
not cool.
I'm scrolling. There's people next to me. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, it's like, I'm not trying to see that.
Instagram's the same way, but not nearly as bad. Like Twitter, you can post nudes, but like on Instagram, it's just you get a fucking ass. Second you open that up, and I just don't want that on my social media that accessible.
I want to have the option of keeping it professional. Like if these games, like the Nike one that you're mentioning, for instance, if these games had the ability to streamer mode, because I mean, some of the games have streamer mode. There's a game that has dong in it, Conan Exile. It's full on dong. You can literally do a dong slider and decide the girth. And it's like, that's great if you like that, but
well, just imagine being the developer for that. Like, and how does it? I don't know. When I see that in a game, I think of the
business
PR,
meeting.
Yeah, I bet.
It's good PR.
I wonder if that was their intention. Or
has to be.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, why else do you spend dev time to design the length of dongs?
Imagine being the devs and then imagine being the manager having to convey, I don't know what goes on and how they do it, but it's just like, okay, so today we're going to be, this is the next project we're going to be doing. And then I need a slider. We need to be able to manage this. These are the ranges. I just couldn't imagine being like, oh, and you're the one that's going to be coding this. You're going to take your project lead on dick size and dick girth.
To be honest, though, the more I'm thinking about it, we are talking about it, and we've mentioned these games, so it's like, maybe I think they're going the all press is good press strategy with this type of stuff. I mean, Conan got a lot of dong free marketing.
But
they had streamer mode, was my point. What I was originally saying with that. They had dong, but you could turn it off, and you could wear clothes. So that's all I'm asking for.
It might get to that point, in these games where it's like, okay, can we get normal cameraman and then perfect cameraman? So it's like we just have a normal shot, or we have the one where it just fucking locks right in there.
Yeah.
And so, I think something to make these games a little bit, but I wonder because they obviously have these people trying to min-max the psychology to get as much money from people. I wonder what they're thinking with this kind of stuff. Like when it comes to okay, we do this because and it shows this big of a revenue increase.
It has to work because more people are doing it, bigger games are doing it, and they're doing it more. So if the market's receiving it well, I mean, who am I to say you can't buy it? So it is what it is, and I feel like I've ranted enough about the topic. But it's just I like to keep it professional when I'm trying to. Okay, so
you got a movie. You got a movie. Do you have any closing thoughts? Any closing thoughts? Any last topic?
Thoughts? You know what? I got my shoes on because Lakers. I guess.
Hey, they won game 2. Bodied the Warriors, stole a game 1. So because they're not at home, and then so I think they're looking pretty good. Yeah, and game 2 was a little rough for the Lakers, but I think they are pretty good. Well, it's still a coin flip, but it could go to game 7. They seem pretty evenly matched. Don't want to count out the Warriors, but they're looking pretty good.
Might end up in LA in June. Was texting Deadwood Jedi to tell him that maybe I'll have dinner or something with you then for a work conference. So I wonder if by the time I get there, hopefully LA Lakers
I think they would
won,
need to be in the finals. I think they would need to go because we're in May now. They're already on game 4 of this. Then they would have one more series and then another series. So June could be if they make it to the finals.
It could be a hype time to be there.
Then yeah, but the tickets are going to be ludicrous.
I guess that's going to be the topic for the next episode on how LA Lakers are doing.
They're doing in the playoffs. All right. It has been
short episode today.
Short episode speed run. We did it in 40 minutes.
All right, not too bad. Subscribe if you're listening to these words because we are a brand new channel and we need subscribers, likes, comments, all of this stuff in order for the algorithm to pick us up. That's it.
Yep, bigger number, better podcast.
Bigger number, better podcast.
All right, it's been real. You guys have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Peace.